Lesson 1.5, Solving Equations with Rational Numbers. We have a lot of vocabulary associated with this lesson. Some of it you'll be familiar with, some of it might be new. Expressions. Expressions are what you're used to solving. You have a mathematical operation like addition or multiplication, and you're going to have two or more numbers. That's all you're going to be worrying about. You guys should be solid on expressions. The second one is equation, and that's very similar to an expression, except that an equation is going to have an equal sign in there somewhere. An equation is going to have numbers or variables on both sides. And here we have 2 times 10, or 2 times 5 equals 10. That's an equation because the idea is we're balancing one side of the equal sign to the other. All right. Often you will have a variable in there, and that's what you will be trying to find the value of. Okay. With equations, one of the main things we're going to be doing is isolating the variable, and that's just trying to get the variable alone on one side of the equal sign so that we can find out what its value should be. Okay. The last vocabulary we have is inverse operations. Okay, and these are the mathematical operations that undo each other. So addition and subtraction are inverse, and multiplication and division are inverse. If I add 2 plus 5 to get 7, I can subtract 5 to get back to my original 2. All right, because they undo each other. If I have 2 times 5 equals 10, I can divide by 5 to get back to my original 2. Same thing. We're going to use this property of inverse operations in order to solve equations and isolate the variable in our equations. Okay. Every time you have an equation, you're attempting to find out what the value of the variable is. All right, you're always going to try and get that alone on one side. You're always going to try and isolate that variable. Okay, and when you're done with the problem, it should look like this. Variable on one side, some constant on the other side. All right. When we progress a little bit further, we might have a variable on one side and then a number and another variable on the other side. Okay, first concept, solving equations with decimals. All right, so our first step is to use inverse operations to isolate the variable. Okay, so we're going to look at whatever operation is next to our variable. Okay, in this case we have addition. Since we have addition, we're going to use subtraction to get rid of this 3.5. So I'm going to subtract 3, not 2. I'm going to subtract 3.5 from both sides of the equation, because the idea is this is an equation. Both sides should be equal at all times. You can think of it as balancing a set of scales. Okay? If I'm taking weight off one side, I have to take weight off the other side in order to keep them balanced. Okay? So, positive 3.5 minus 3.5, these are going to cancel. And that's the main point of what we're doing. We're trying to get this to move over and get it to disappear from the side that has our variable on it. So we have v equals 11.5 minus 3.5, and that should be 8. And that is our answer. All right. This is our step where we simplify. We have 11.5 minus 3.5. We simplify it to 8, and that is our solved equation. All right. We'll look at one more example. This time we have division as the operation with our variable. So in order to get rid of this division, I'm going to have to use multiplication. And again, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So in order to get rid of this negative 2.2 in the denominator, I'm going to have to multiply by negative 2.2. And I'm going to have to do that to both sides. These will cancel, and I'll be left with just my variable down at the bottom. And then I have a negative 5 times negative 2.2. A negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So I know I'm going to have a positive number at the end. 5 times 2 is going to be 10. And 5 times 2 is going to be one more. I have a decimal place, but because it becomes 10, my answer turns into 11. And that's it.